Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be talking about Barry Season 3, Episode 3. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Leave a like, leave a comment. We're going to be talking about Barry every single week. Full spoilers ahead, and this season, we're 3 seasons in, and I think I talked about it a little bit in last week's review that for the first time ever, I was like, Barry's a bad guy. I mean, he's always been a bad guy, but the show is really pushing to make you not like him in terms of rooting for the other characters. I'm sitting here like, I'm rooting for Sally. I want things to work out for her. I want Hank and Cristobal to end up together and solve their problem. I want Mr. Kusno to, get his life together and be able to move on and, be there with his son and his grandkid. And Barry's sort of the guy you're looking at and saying, "Wow, this is the villain." And so I was thinking, well, how do you continue the show when that is the case? When Barry's the one that you're really sort of looking at in this light? And the answer to that, brilliantly, in my opinion, is you bring in a worse villain, a worse monster, the monster that created Barry. And this whole episode was sort of leading to that final scene with Fuchs. And you forget how twisted and just cruel the guy is, but you get to that ending and he's angry and clearly wants to go on this vendetta to go after Barry. And I'm pretty sure now that that's going to be a major part of the plot and is going to sort of shift the audience back to Barry's side because he's going to be dealing with that. At least that's my theory. Thoughts on Fuchs in this episode and just sort of your thoughts on how you feel about Barry, that the dynamic with those two, and like I said, the fact that he is sort of the one that really created this monster that is Barry.
Well, we were talking about before in a previous episode that we were curious if we were going to get some backstory to Barry, because with the way his storyline has been progressing, it's very hard to not only be sympathetic to him, but to kind of understand what changed. Like, why is he, acting the way he is? Why? I mean, he's always been a not good guy. He's, fucking crazy. But we also never really understood we didn't understand as crazy. We didn't understand what created the monster that is Barry, that needs constant, reassurance, constant, attention, and constant affirmation was the word I was looking for, but I was just going to keep spitting out words until I found it. But we were curious as to when we were going to get that and how we were going to find out as far as what caused him to become the person he was. And I think that bringing Fuchs back in, we're going to find that very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fuchs coming back into the fold just really changes the dynamic. And I wonder what his play is. Whether he has some idea of the type of crap that Hank was trying to pull. Like, what is Fuchs' angle here? What sort of connections does he still have, and how is he going to come at Barry? My feeling is that what Fuchs is going to do is he's going to not so much go for Barry. He's going to go for Kusino, because he's always been jealous of the role that he plays in Barry's life. That he feels that he should be getting that level of adoration that Barry has for him.
Speaking of Kusino, yeah, that could be it. I mean, the way the episode ends is where, I mean, that was such a good scene. God, when they're on the set and, Barry and Kusino had that heart to heart and he started questioning, the decisions he's made. Barry's expressing how, no, you've guided me on the right path. And then we have the meltdown in that scene when he punched or hits him and stay away from me, stay away from my family, and then storms off. And I was like, man, where does it go from here? Like, I could see Barry saying, okay, I'll give you your space. But I was thinking the way he did that, I'm like, is that going to lead to the production team being like, wow, he's really good? And they give him some big part in something?
That's what I think.
I think it's going to help Kusno's career. And it's going to be because of Barry that he was refound. So I am curious as to how that's going to transpire.
Yeah, they're just going to think that it was great acting, and they're probably going to expand both their roles on the show, because it's supposed to be like an ongoing soap opera of some kind. Because people were talking about it. It's not just a movie; it's a show. So they're probably going to expand both those roles and have them working together
Was
And
that
now,
Zach Morris?
was
Yes,
it? I'm gonna have to go back and look. I didn't notice
it
that.
was. I was gonna wait to mention that. But yeah, it was
Yeah, I didn't look it up. I
Paul
was looking at.
Gosselaar.
I was like, is that
I
who I
didn't
think?
notice. But yeah, I feel like they're going to expand his roles in between that and his son not having a job and them needing some source of money and Fugues coming after Kusino. He's going to, whether he likes it or not, become dependent on Barry this season because he needs him for both things.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. Because and I didn't really think about it until this episode. I was talking about how sympathetic he was last week, but we forget how much ego and how shitty Mr. Kusino is. And so
Yeah,
if his
not a
career
pretty
starts
dude.
to take off and he gets into that, and like you said, obviously, if he's being pursued by Fuchs, he's going to need Barry, and maybe that relationship will change. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It was funny. This episode was only 25 minutes. This was the shortest episode so far this season, and yet they packed so much in it.
Yeah, that's my only complaint of the show is that these episodes, like you said, there's a lot packed in there, but it still feels like it's too short. I want an hour of Barry each week. Uh,
I I I mean, selfishly, yeah, I want more. But on the same note, that's the reason I prefer shows that are like on HBO or even FX does it to where they're not stuck to that 43-minute mark or 44-minute mark. They're they're allowed to tell the story and then stop the episode. So it to me, I love the fact that they have that freedom because in my eyes, there's much less filler. There's much less like nonsense as far as just random shit just piled on top of there. But selfishly, yeah, I want more, but it's just because I enjoy the show so much. I just want more interaction and shit. We've waited like 2 years for this season. Yeah, I really, I really would like more episodes.
There's been more than a few episodes of Big Sky that I was like, this should be 25 minutes. Like, I think you could have
Way
got to the
shorter.
point.
yeah, the opposite experience with that show.
Yeah. Um, we have the Sally press junket, which I mean, just hilarious. And anyone who's ever watched any of those interviews, they did it very well. Where it's
Oh,
just
it
like,
was
okay,
so real to life. It was funny
yeah,
as
they're
shit.
gonna come in, they're gonna ask you a couple of stupid questions, you'll smile, and then they're gonna ask you some shit that has nothing to do with anything. Who do you think the next Spider-Man should be? Like, it was great, and I love. She gives her answer, and then later she's talking to the other actress. Oh, what did you say? And she's like Harry Styles, and she's like, shit, that makes
That
more
was a good
sense.
answer.
My favorite part of that is the cake boss bit. She's like, "Is that one of the Avengers?
She's like, what is Cake Boss?
is that one of the Avengers?" She's like, "No." It's like, "Oh, I messed that up."
um, but yeah, just thoughts on that, and well, more so actually the young actress. She still has concerns about Barry. She was offered a limo drive to the premiere. She turned it down. She was told that, yeah, Barry. This is the first time she's getting any backstory on him. Basically, like, yeah, he was in the war, PTSD, etc. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, is she going to go ahead and say, well, maybe I'll try and get to know him and see what's going on there? Or I don't know where they're going with it. Clearly they're going somewhere. Clearly her character has a plot line. It sort of makes me scared for her, because I was thinking about the young Chechnyan assassin or soldier from last season, who was young, and he meets Barry and he becomes a fan of his, and then he develops and becomes this amazing soldier, and then Barry kills him at the end. And I don't know why she reminded me of that character, just sort of this character that you're rooting for, and they seem well intentioned as far as what they're doing, but it leads getting involved with Barry always ends in tragedy and death. And so I don't know, any thoughts on her and sort of the whole Sally stuff.
I think what you just said, it's going to be vital to the story going forward because Is he going to come to a point where he sees that she is a threat, and perhaps Barry finally not takes one for the team, but finally isn't a piece of shit, and you know just kind of lets her be, or steers her in the right direction, or changes once he realizes the way people are seeing him. I don't know, but I am super interested to see going forward how this affects not just his relationship, but his I don't know, personality, like, because he's not a great dude. He's proved to us over and over and over that he is a psychopath, and I am curious to see if this is a season where instead of embracing the psychopath, he finally starts to go against it or fight against it, because so far he has not done a good job uh, going against his evil urges.
Yeah, I think a lot of the perspective that he's going to get this season is going to, like you're saying, Spencer, potentially lead to him sparing her. Like, she might piece things together and she might be about to say something publicly and he might actually let it go. And because I feel like you could easily spin that into another season, because so much, even if she does figure everything out, so much has been covered up. So it would only be rumor and speculation. And it would also go to, because this Barry is also about, the nature of Hollywood and everything. And so if anything, it would just be played for publicity, and it may, skyrocket their careers, because you know, there's this whole question of, did these things happen? That this person is accusing them of, and now the press wants to talk to them more. Now his girlfriend's show is being pushed a little. People are a little more interested in this show, and them both as celebrities. So it may be something that spins into next season.
Well, and I think, like you just said, it may end up not hurting them, but coming to the point where it's showing us the evils of Hollywood, where it's they, instead of hurting either Sally or Barry's career, it helps both of their career while it buries the other girls.
Right? Yeah, and it's the sort of thing that sort of propels them, and and they become more famous. It gets swept under the rug. Nobody ever thinks about it again. And it sounds crazy for nobody to ever think of something like that again. But I mean, we just came from Snowfall not too long ago, where a similar thing happened, and it's based on actual events to some degree. So it's not too unreasonable that she may say her piece, may not be able to factually prove anything, and it benefits all the characters involved.
We get Cristobal basically convincing, it appears he convinces Fernando, as far as we can tell, or as far as the show was showing us, to pack up and leave. He's like, you know what, it didn't work out here. Let's move on. Get away. He wants to protect Hank. But on the other hand, Hank is now like, well, if we kill Fernando, he's starting to plot. And so we get an interesting thing where, one of the guys buys a bomb. And so they're trying to figure out how to get it there. And of course he thinks, well, shit, Barry. And because of everything that went down with Mr. Cousineau, Barry's now willing to, yeah, I'll kill again, whatever. What do you want me to do? So they're excited. They're celebrating. Barry's coming back to the crew. He's going to do this mission for us. He's going to go kill Fernando. But we also get a moment where one of Hank's men is sort of figuring shit out, and he basically confronts him about it without openly saying it. And so there's a lot of weird dynamics going on with Hank now. He's trying to kill Cristobal's father-in-law. We have these two sort of rival factions. We have people within his own house who are questioning what's going on. We're now bringing Barry back into the equation, which is chaos. And, who knows how that's going to go. But like I said, we're only 3 episodes in, and there's so many layers and so many things going on in the Hank subplot. What are your guys' thoughts on all those things and where it could be going? I'm assuming, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Barry, his missions always go crazy, so who knows?
I was going to make a Shrek reference because you said layers, and immediately I just wanted to start talking about onions. but yeah, it's very hard to kind of read not only what the show's intentions are going forward, but how they're going to not just wrap everything up, but how they're going to spin it going forward next season. So I think the Cristobal and the father-in-law storyline is great, but I think it's also a way to spin his story going forward too, because now Hank is going to be reliant on Barry again going forward through this season. But I am curious if they take out the father-in-law, does that put Cristobal as number one? So now you'll add that dynamic, or is he going to be pissed off at Hank and try to take out Barry because Barry took out his father-in-law, even though he is, would benefit from that? Does he want his father-in-law to not be around, or does he, because his wife, who he's clearly is not interested in, but we don't know that he would want his father-in-law dead. So how would the wife react to that? How?
He seems pretty reasonable so far,
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah.
yeah, because he was just like, well,
They going to, where were they going to eat burgers?
Johnny
Yeah.
Rockets.
Johnny Rockets.
He's like, well, I'll tell them in the parking lot.
Like the most basic American burger joint they could possibly go to. A Johnny Rockets.
That's how he's going to let them down easy, that they weren't going to go kill a bunch of Chechnyans.
I wasn't sure at first until he like laid it out, because it still seems a little bit iffy, because he paused for a long time before he said that. He's like, "You're right, Cristobal. You do know how to run your business." It's like, "I'll take them to Johnny Rockets. I'll let them know in the parking lot later, that we're going back home." And you know, so it's like I'm still maybe a little suspicious that he's maybe in the know.
I am too. That's
Yeah.
why I was saying that based on what they were showing us. But I was questioning. I was like, is he bullshitting him or I don't know.
There's two scenarios, and this first one would be very much in the vein of the show. Uh, they're actually going back. He lets them know in the parking lot, and as they're heading home from Johnny Rockets, that's when Barry attacks and messes up, and now it's escalated. They were about to leave, or he's onto them, and Barry manages to save Cristobal.
That would be crazy too. Like if he ends up saving Cristobal, because that would be forever putting him in. Well, Hank forever be indebted to Barry, and that would be a huge game changer. I think as far as the story going forward is that Hank now owes Barry, as opposed to the other way around where they're just kind of using him. Now Hank owes him.
And not only that, potentially Cristobal, who, as you mentioned earlier, may at that point be potentially head of the family, if his father-in-law is dead. And, but then of course we have the different faction of Hank's underlings, and Fuchs is a problem. But then again, while being a problem, Fuchs may also be a solution, because when it's like, oh, well, how did the head of our family die? And all these guys we send, like, oh, that was the Raven.
That's true. The Raven.
Like he's gone rogue. This Chechnyan assassin, the Raven.
The police are hunting him and shit. They're like, this guy's unstoppable. I love the joy he took in being the goat farm or whatever. Like at the beginning, and he's just sort of like, I'm in heaven. This is nice. This is wonderful. And then by the end, he'd gone back to being crazy. But I loved all that, and the back and forth on the phone with Barry. Barry's like, "You're not in the hospital. I hear I hear goats." He's like, "I'm gonna."
Are you on a farm?
Yeah, it's like at the zoo. Yeah, that was funny. Like they weave in little bitty funny like stuff all the time. Like I said, the cake boss thing. It's like holy shit.
Yeah, that part was great. Like you said, it was great seeing him go around with the crook and everything, herding goats, and looking like he's having the time of his life. But Fuchs is so damn petty. He can't let it go. He can't believe that Barry's not thanking him at this point for some reason.
Yeah. but yeah, that was everything in that 25 minutes. When I saw the time length when I turned on the episode, I was like, damn, 25 minutes. Um, but yeah, it was great. Anything else before we wrap this up?
I just love that it, also showed that while he's scheming and he's good at scheming and plotting, Fuchs is also kind of dumb because his whole speech,
Yes.
his speech at the end, was both menacing and dumb. It's like, how long did this whole Panther plot take? Turning them into Panthers. He's like, it's a fable. Didn't actually turn anybody into Panthers. He's like, but it could be real.
Yeah, I think that this show, we talked, and me and you talked about this earlier, Brian, the Bill Hader and how brilliant he is and how underrated he was previously in other aspects of his career. But he's directed several episodes. Him and Alex, I can't remember the guy's last name, but they're, the showrunners. There's always the little tidbits on HBO Max, the, behind the scenes thing, and listening to those two talk about where they want the show, talking about when they're in the rooms with the writers. It's not only do I love the show, but coming from somebody who's a bit of a cinephile and loves movies and TV, I can't say enough praise to Bill Hader and what they've accomplished with this show.
Yeah, he was so great on SNL, but I don't think he was ever praised the way he should have been. Like very underrated. And he's written for so many other shows. Like a lot of people don't know. He worked on South Park. He's worked with a lot of other things. Like he's a really great comedy writer. Um, but yeah, hell of an episode. Great show. Very excited about next week's. Um, yeah, appreciate everyone listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay woke.